All right, fifth grade. Today we're going to do the last section of our chapter 11 packet, which is read and do, talking about how the starting of declaring independence. And before we get to the Declaration of Independence, there was debates between each of the colonies deciding whether or not, between the Patriots and Loyalists, deciding whether or not they should move away from being a colony of Britain and be their own states and nation. So what we're going to do is I've actually played this for you before, which was an excerpt from Patrick Henry's words, "Give me liberty, give me death." I think if I'm not mistaken, I played it for you at the end of chapter 7 and or chapter 10. I'm sorry, when we talked about the tensions growing. So what we're briefly going to do is just go over again his speech, and if you look on your page, one second. So if you go and look at your packet, here is the end of his speech, and what you're going to do is come up with your own slogan for Patriots and Loyalists, right? So "Give me liberty, give me death" was like the call to arms to encourage people in the colonies to become a patriot. So come up with another slogan that the Patriots would use, and one for the Loyalists. But what we're going to do is we're going to listen to his speech. I'm not going to necessarily read you the reading because it kind of goes through his life about how he became a lawyer, and what he went through before he became a lawyer, and that's how he entered the House of Burgesses. And when he was giving his speech, there are many points about the speech that he did that were convincing. It was a little bit treasonous. People felt like what he was being a tyrant from his words. But we're going to listen to this playback, and then afterwards I want you to think about what would be some of your slogans that you would want to use.
No man, Mr. President, thinks more highly than I do of the patriotism as well as the abilities of the very honorable gentlemen who have just addressed this House. But different men often see the same subject in different lights, and therefore I hope it will not be thought disrespectful of those worthy gentlemen if, entertaining as I do an opinion of a character very opposite to theirs, I should speak forth my sentiments freely and without reserve. This is no time for ceremony. The question before this House is one of awful moment to the country. For my part, I consider it as nothing less than a question of freedom or slavery. And in proportion to the magnitude of the subject ought to be the freedom of debate. It is only in this way that we can hope to arrive at truth and fulfill the great responsibility which we hold to God and our country. Should I keep back my opinions at such a time through fear of giving offense, I should consider myself as guilty of treason towards my country and of an act of disloyalty to the majesty of heaven, which I revere above all earthly kings. Mr. President, it is natural to man to indulge in the illusions of hope. We are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth and listen to the song of that siren till she transforms us into beasts. Is this the part of wise men engaged in a great and arduous struggle for liberty? Are we disposed to be among the number of those who, having eyes, see not, and having ears, hear not, the things which so nearly concern their temporal salvation? For my own part, whatever anguish of spirit it may cost, I am willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst, and to provide for it. I have but one lamp by which my feet are guided, and that is the lamp of experience. I know of no way of judging of the future, but by the past. And judging by the past, I should wish to know, what has there been in the conduct of the British ministry for the last 10 years to justify these hopes of peace and reconciliation with which the gentlemen are pleased to solace themselves and the members of this House? Is it that insidious smile with which our petition has been lately received? Trust it not, sir. It will prove a snare to your feet. Suffer not yourselves to be betrayed with a kiss. Ask yourselves how this gracious reception of our petition comports to these warlike preparations which cover our waters and darken our land. Are fleets and armies necessary to a work of love and reconciliation? Have we shown ourselves so unwilling to be reconciled that force must be called in to win back our love? Let us not deceive ourselves, sir. These are the implements of war and subjugation, the last arguments to which kings resort. I ask, gentlemen, sir, what means this martial array if its purpose be not to force us to submission? Can gentlemen assign any other possible motive to it? Has Great Britain any enemy in this quarter of the world to call for all this vast accumulation of navies and armies? No, sir. She has none. They are meant for us. They can be meant for no other. They are sent over to bind and rivet upon us those chains which the British ministry has been so long forging. And what have we to oppose them? Shall we try argument? Sir, we have been trying that for the last 10 years. Have we anything new to offer upon the subject? Nothing. We have held the subject up in every light of which it is capable, but it has all been in vain. Shall we resort to entreaty and humble supplication? What new terms shall we find which have not already been exhausted? Let us not, I beseech you, sir, deceive ourselves any longer. We have done everything that could be done to avert this storm from coming on. We have petitioned, we have remonstrated, we have supplicated.
Sorry about the audio pause. I had to go back a little bit. 1 second.
If we wish to be free, if we mean to preserve inviolate those inestimable privileges for which we have been so long contending, if we mean not basely to abandon the noble struggle in which we have been so long engaged, and which we have pledged ourselves never to abandon until the glorious object of our contest shall be obtained, we must fight. I repeat it, sir. We must fight. An appeal to arms and to the God of hosts is all that is left us. They tell us, sir, we are weak, unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be the next week or the next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed and a British guard shall be stationed in every house? Shall we gather strength by irresolution and inaction? Shall we acquire the means of effectual resistance by lying supinely on our backs and hugging the delusive phantom of hope until our enemy shall have bound us hand and foot? Sir, we are not weak if we make a proper use of that means which a gracious God hath placed in our power. 3 millions of people, armed in the holy cause of liberty, and in such a country as that which we possess, are invincible by any force which our enemy can send against us. Besides, sir, we shall not fight our battles alone. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations, and who will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. The battle, sir, is not to the strong alone. It is to the vigilant, the active, the brave. Besides, sir, we have no election. If we were base enough to desire it, it is now too late to retire from the contest. There is no retreat but in submission and slavery. Our chains are forged. Their clanking may be heard on the plains of Boston. The war is inevitable, and let it come. I repeat it, sir, let it come. It is in vain to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war is actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God! I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty, or give me death.
All right, so there's our example of passionate cry to arms from Patrick Henry. So what I want you to do is think about the Loyalists and Patriots and what they thought of. I kind of have this PDF that I'll post of have your teacher share of the Loyalists, right? They wanted a strong, unified British Empire, and it was good for everyone. The colonists are British subjects, and they should obey the British law. Taxes are due to pay for the French and Indian War, which was fought to protect the colonies, right? So you pay taxes for protection. The American colonies would be weak without Britain's support. The colonies profit from trading with England and selling their goods to England. That's a repeat. Colonies are too far away from England to have representation in Parliament. It's just not practical, meaning the reason behind not having representation by or taxation without representation. The Patriots' main arguments were that people have rights for government and that can't be taken away like property. The taxation takes away property from citizens, their money, their goods. The colonists don't have a voice in Parliament, so England shouldn't tax the colonies. That's the no taxation without representation. And you cannot use that slogan because we've already gone over that slogan. There's no way colonies could ever be represented in Parliament because it's too far away. Which is why they needed to be independent, because they can't give themselves representation there. Many colonists fought in the French and Indian War. They've done their parts. They shouldn't have to pay taxes now to pay for it. The British personnel are causing violence, riots, and deaths. So kind of like the violence of the soldiers and tax collectors, governors, all those British leaders that were in the colonies were not following law. So you can use this as an example to help you come up with your slogan. But what you're going to do is come up with a slogan for the Patriots and a slogan for the Loyalists. And then what you're going to work on is just a short, and I mean short, letter to a Loyalist and a Patriot, right? So, Dear Patriot, or Dear Fellow Patriot. And in your letter, you don't need to necessarily completely follow the directions to a T, but I do want you to give 2 reasons for agreeing with that. Okay? So, Dear Fellow Patriot, and some sort of letter agreeing with them. You have to give 2 reasons why you agree with your fellow patriot. And you could give them a name, right? Dear Fellow Patriot Benjamin. You could write to one of the patriots mentioned, right? So you could write your letter to Benjamin Franklin, Mary Otis Warren, or Samuel Adams, right? Address it to one of them and, agree with them on 2 of the points that they had. Then on the other side, so you have your slogans here, and maybe you can share your slogan with your patriot as your salutation, right? So you could include your slogan and then sign it. So that's your letter, right? You're going to give 2 reasons why you agree with them. And then the next side is your Loyalist side. Right? Or to His Royal Highness, King George III, right? And instead of fellow, you can even say dear. You can put the person's name, and again, you're going to address this to one of the Loyalists: Thomas Hutchinson's, Jonathan Booker, or Lord Dumore. And same thing. Can address it to one of the loyalists mentioned. And again, you're going to give your 2 reasons, right? Maybe whoever you're writing to, give your 2 reasons how you agree with them, and include your slogan, and then sign it, sincerely, John Deere. All right, and you want to write a letter to them. So that's what you're working on for today. It's kind of a short little 2 little letters, one to a patriot, one to a loyalist, and include your slogan in your letter to them. And then we are done with chapter 11. And before we start working on our states project, we are going to go in tandem, wrap up the American Revolution. All right, so have a great day, 5th grade.